The game of shadows is over. Now comes the cost. Secrets once whispered are shrouded in blood, bonds once fragile are torn by duty, and a girl once in control is about to lose everything. The Uchiha will fall, and no one, not Sakura, not Itachi, not even Kakashi, can stop what's coming. This is the night the story changes. The end of innocence, the beginning of war, and the moment the silent bond earns its name. Welcome to Riow Stories. This episode is different. It's dark, it's painful, and it's what everything has been leading to so far. If you've made it this far, thank you. Like, comment, and subscribe, and take a breath. Let's begin Chapter 24 of The Silent Bond, Reincarnated as Sakura Haruno. Chapter 24, Unraveling the Uchiha's Secrets. The streets of Konoha were quiet in the late evening, bathed in the muted glow of lantern light. But above the rooftops, high above the illusion of calm, Kakashi Hatake crouched in silence. His eyes, sharp and focused beneath his hatae, scanned the edge of the Uchiha district where the shadows lingered deepest. For weeks now, he had been watching. Itachi Uchiha moved like a ghost through his clan's territory, precise, composed, detached. But Kakashi knew the signs, the subtle hesitation in his step, the way his gaze lingered too long at the village walls, the slight shift in his chakra when certain elders were mentioned. It wasn't defiance, not openly, but something more dangerous, disillusionment. And lately, Itachi was never alone. She appeared only at night, sometimes in the alleys, sometimes on rooftops, always masked, always watching. At first, Kakashi had assumed she was Anbu, possibly a double agent feeding information to Itachi, but that assumption didn't hold. Her movements were too fluid, too unbound by orders. Her chakra felt older, not in age but in weight, seasoned, refined, and buried under layers of suppression. She wore a mask, but it wasn't for anonymity. It was armor, identity hidden not just from others, but from herself. And then there was her resemblance, the way she stood, the way her voice drifted when caught off guard. Rin, Kakashi thought again, then shut the thought down like a knife to the chest. No, this wasn't her. It couldn't be, but that didn't make her any less dangerous. Tonight, Kakashi had positioned himself along the north ridge, eyes fixed on Itachi's route through the compound. He didn't expect much, just a patrol, maybe a secret meeting, but his instincts were already tightening in his chest, because the air tonight was still, too still, and she was coming. Elsewhere, Uchiha compound, inner district. Itachi moved through the winding alleys of the Uchiha sector, silent as the breeze that rustled the trees overhead. His patrol had ended, but he hadn't gone home. Not yet. He felt her presence before he saw her. There was no killing intent, no attempt at stealth, just a subtle vibration through the air, like a ripple on still water. She stood in his path before he turned the corner, her mask gleaming dully in the moonlight. That same half face, white and red, no symbol, no allegiance, only silence. You're persistent, he said evenly, not pausing his step. So are you, she replied. He stopped then, meeting her gaze beneath the mask. Her chakra was calm, unmoving, almost like stone, but he knew better. It was a technique, a disguise. Even with his Sharingan, he couldn't see through it. That alone put her on a level that made him wary. You keep appearing, speaking in riddles, Itachi said. What is it you want? Her voice softened. Change what's coming. There was a long pause. The wind stirred the trees above them, and somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. You know nothing of what's coming. She stepped closer. I know enough. Enough to know you're considering a path that will destroy you and everything Sasuke still believes in. That made him flinch. Barely. But it was there. Her next words were a whisper. You don't have to be the executioner, Itachi. The silence that followed was heavier than any blade. Itachi stood motionless beneath the hanging shadows of the compound wall, his gaze unreadable. Moonlight caught in his eyes, deep crimson pools of the Sharingan, whirring faintly with quiet threat. I've already made my decision, he said at last. You made a choice under pressure, she replied. That isn't the same as having a path. The masked woman's voice carried no desperation, only resolve. She stepped forward, and this time Itachi didn't move away. Her hand lifted, not toward a weapon but toward her pouch. From it she pulled a scroll, one lined with detailed seal work. This contains a chakra mask, layered suppression. If you use it, even Danzo won't be able to trace your movements. He narrowed his eyes. Why would you give me this? Because you're not the only one being watched. The scroll fluttered between them like an unspoken truth. After a long pause, Itachi reached for it, his fingers brushing hers, just briefly, enough for a jolt of recognition to pass between them. "You're not Anbu," he said quietly. "No, and yet you move like one, think like one." "I've learned to survive," she answered. He held the scroll without looking at it. "Then you know survival often means sacrifice." Her voice faltered for the first time. It shouldn't mean silence. Their eyes locked. Then, without another word, she pressed her palm against his chest. Sealing Jutsu, hidden chakra channel. A soft glow radiated beneath her fingertips as intricate patterns laced with chakra formed in the air between them. The technique wasn't invasive. It was deliberate, measured. A seal that pulsed with a different intent, restoration. Itachi's breath caught in his throat. "What are you doing?" he asked sharply, sensing the heat building beneath his skin. "Healing," she whispered, "or trying to." At first, he resisted. His body tensed, his chakra flared, but as the seal took hold, something shifted. A dark pocket of sickness buried deep in his lungs trembled, then cracked. The pain was immediate. Itachi stumbled, a sharp gasp escaping him as his legs buckled. The pressure surged like fire under his ribs, then began to drain away in thin wisps of black smoke curling from his skin. From his rooftop post, Kakashi's eye widened. Rooftop. Kakashi's intervention. In a flash, the silver-haired Jonin moved. One moment he was crouched in shadow, the next he dropped silently into the courtyard behind them. Sharing an exposed, cloak rippling in the night breeze, he moved like a blade in human form. The masked woman had just stepped back from Itachi when he appeared. "Step away," Kakashi commanded. Low and sharp, his gaze locked onto her. She turned to face him, her posture fluid and unthreatening, her chakra calm. "He's not in danger," she said evenly. "I'm not your enemy. You expect me to believe that?" His eye narrowed, assessing everything. The faint chakra residue on her hands, the scroll tucked at Itachi's side, the seal that shimmered on his chest. "You're not Anbu. You're not even listed in the records." "I'm no threat to the village," she repeated, voice steady. "Not unless the village becomes a threat first." That answer didn't comfort him, but it didn't provoke him either. He lowered his hand slightly, his stance relaxing by an inch. Behind them, Itachi coughed, weak but conscious. He lifted his head. "She healed me," he said hoarsely. "I didn't ask her to, but I let her." Kakashi looked between them. Silence hung for several seconds. "This isn't over," he said finally, his voice like steel wrapped in velvet. "No," the masked woman said, "it isn't." And with a flicker of chakra, she vanished. The night had returned to silence, but it no longer felt still. Kakashi knelt beside Itachi, his visible eye flicking between the younger shinobi's pale features and the intricate chakra residue still lingering faintly in the air. "You're hurt," Kakashi said, voice lower now, less commanding, more concerned. "I'm fine," Itachi replied, but his voice was ragged. "Or, I will be." Kakashi helped him sit upright. The seal on his chest had faded, leaving only a slight burn-like mark over his heart. Whatever technique she'd used, it wasn't simple. It had drained them both, Itachi physically and the masked woman emotionally. "What did she do to you?" Kakashi asked, not accusingly, but with the tone of someone trying to fit missing pieces together. "She removed the sickness," Itachi said, blinking slowly. "Or at least suppressed it. I didn't think it was possible." Kakashi's expression shifted. "That illness, you've had it since before you joined Anbu?" Itachi didn't answer directly. He looked toward the rooftops where she had disappeared. "She knows more than she should," he said instead. "About me, about Sasuke, about the Uchiha and the village." Kakashi folded his arms, one brow rising. "And yet you didn't stop her." "I couldn't," Itachi admitted. "Not because I was too weak, but because part of me wanted to hear her out." Kakashi studied him in silence for a moment, the wind rustling faintly through the compound trees behind them. "She's not a ghost," he said, "but she's hiding something. Her chakra, it flickers like it's not entirely her own." "I noticed," Itachi said, his tone quiet. A long pause. "Do you think she's the one who's been interfering with Danzo's surveillance?" Kakashi asked. Itachi nodded once. "She's been planting chakra interference seals, deliberately masking her movements and ours." "And Root hasn't picked up on it?" "Not yet. She's clever. Too clever." For a while, neither spoke. Just the hum of the nighttime insects filled the space between them. Then Kakashi stood. "We're walking a narrow line," he said. "Too narrow." Itachi looked up at him. What will you do? Kakashi's gaze drifted toward the rooftops once more, then beyond, toward the Hokage's tower, silhouetted against the moonlit sky. For now, watch, listen, wait. He turned to leave but paused. If she contacts you again, I want to be informed. No more secrets. Itachi's expression didn't change. That depends on the nature of what she says. Kakashi narrowed his eye, but he didn't argue. The next morning, Hokage's office. The heavy scent of paper and ink clung to the air as Kakashi delivered his report. Hiruzen Sarutobi read through it in silence, pipe resting in his other hand, eyes narrowing at the mention of the masked woman. Her appearance, her healing of Itachi, her evasive but non-hostile stance, it all formed a puzzle with too many missing pieces. I've encountered her before, the Hokage said softly, briefly. At the edge of an operation during the war, she interfered, but not maliciously. Even then, I couldn't tell whose side she was on. Do you think she's Root? No, Sarutobi said. If she were, Danzo wouldn't be trying so hard to find her. Kakashi watched the older man closely. So what now? The third Hokage leaned back in his chair. We keep eyes on the Uchiha, but we don't act. Not yet. And the girl? A faint puff of smoke curled from the pipe. If she's what I think she is, she might be trying to prevent what none of us have been brave enough to stop. Kakashi's eye flickered. You mean the massacre? Sarutobi didn't answer. Not directly. I want to know more about her, he said. But not through Root. I trust you, Kakashi. If she approaches again, don't drive her away. Kakashi nodded slowly. I won't. Chapter 25, the night before the massacre. Itachi Uchiha walked through the quiet streets of the Uchiha district, Sasuke asleep in his arms. The night was calm, but the atmosphere was heavy with the weight of what was to come. The moon cast an eerie glow over the village, as if bearing witness to the dark secret Itachi carried. His heart felt heavy with guilt and anguish as he stared down at his younger brother's peaceful face. He loved Sasuke more than anything in the world, and it was for this very reason that he would commit the unthinkable. Tomorrow, Itachi would end the lives of everyone he had grown up with, his family, his clan, all to protect Sasuke and to prevent the Uchiha from plunging Konoha into civil war. It was a burden only he could bear, and he did so without hesitation. Forgive me, Sasuke, Itachi whispered softly. I do this so you may live in peace, far away from the bloodshed. He gently brushed Sasuke's hair from his face, his expression pained yet determined. Sasuke stirred slightly, nuzzling closer into his brother's chest. As Itachi neared their home, a figure at the far end of the street caught his eye. His senses immediately sharpened, and his Sharingan activated out of instinct. The figure stood perfectly still, illuminated by the pale moonlight, a woman dressed in a beautiful pink kimono, her face obscured by shadows. It was Yuki, the geisha Itachi had seen in recent days, but something was horribly wrong. Her kimono was soaked in blood. Itachi's heart skipped a beat as he instinctively tightened his hold on Sasuke. His mind raced, trying to piece together why she was here and whose blood was staining her once pristine attire. Yuki, Itachi muttered under his breath, his eyes narrowing with suspicion. What have you done? Before Itachi could react further, the ground beneath his feet shifted. Red chains, glowing faintly in the moonlight, erupted from a hidden seal and wrapped around his body. They coiled tightly, restricting his movements and forcing him to his knees. The pressure was immense, and the pain from Sakura's earlier treatment still lingered in his body, making it difficult to resist. He gritted his teeth, his arms locked around Sasuke, who remained blissfully unaware of the danger. Itachi's Sharingan flared as he attempted to break free, but the red chains burned with a powerful sealing jutsu, draining his strength and locking him in place. No, not now, Itachi muttered, his voice strained as the chains tightened. He struggled to move, but could barely manage to shift his weight, his mind torn between breaking free and protecting Sasuke. Sasuke! His eyes darted toward Yuki, who slowly approached, her blood-stained kimono dragging along the ground. There was something unnervingly calm about her demeanor, as if the blood she wore was nothing more than an accessory. Her face was serene, yet her eyes were cold, devoid of the warmth Itachi had seen in her before. You're too late, Itachi, Yuki spoke, her voice soft but laced with malice. The Uchiha are already crumbling, and by tomorrow, I will be done. Her gaze flickered to Sasuke in his arms, and a faint smile tugged at her lips. But it doesn't have to end with him. Itachi's eyes widened in horror as her words sank in. The blood she wore, it wasn't her own. It was Uchiha blood. She had already begun what he had hoped to avoid. Before Itachi could act, the chains pulsed again, sending a shockwave of pain through his body. His vision blurred for a moment as he gritted his teeth, refusing to let out a sound for Sasuke's sake. Despite his pain, his focus remained on Yuki. "Who are you?" "Really?" Itachi managed to rasp, his voice low and strained. "Why are you doing this?" Yuki chuckled softly, her eyes gleaming in the moonlight. "Who I am doesn't matter. What matters is that the Uchiha are already dead, just as my clan was, just like the Uzumaki." She stepped closer, her voice taking on a more venomous tone. "We were left to die, abandoned by this village you so desperately want to protect, and now the Uchiha will suffer the same fate." Itachi's mind raced. He had heard rumors about the Uzumaki clan and their tragic downfall, but he had never thought someone would still harbor such deep resentment. His eyes flicked to Sasuke and a wave of dread washed over him. He had to find a way to protect his brother. But before he could make another move, another presence arrived, a familiar one. Kakashi Hatake appeared silently in the distance, his Sharingan already activated as he took in the scene before him. His gaze first landed on Itachi, bound by glowing red chains, and then shifted to Yuki, her blood-soaked kimono a stark contrast to the serene geisha he had glimpsed in the past. "What's going on here?" Kakashi demanded, his voice sharp as he stepped forward, assessing the situation. His eyes narrowed as they met Yuki's, sensing the darkness within her chakra. Yuki turned slowly to face him, her expression cool and unbothered by his sudden arrival. "Kakashi Hatake, always the loyal dog of Konoha." Her voice was laced with sarcasm, as if she found his presence amusing rather than threatening. Kakashi's eyes flicked to Itachi, then back to Yuki. "Release him," he ordered, his tone low and dangerous. "This has nothing to do with you." But Yuki only smiled, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. "Nothing to do with me? You're wrong, Kakashi. This has everything to do with me. The Uchiha are already on the brink of destruction." Her voice dropped, and her eyes gleamed with malice. "Just like you stood by and did nothing while the Uzumaki were slaughtered, you'll do nothing now." Kakashi's heart tightened at her words, memories of the destruction of the Uzumaki clan flooding back into his mind. The village had failed them, just as Yuki said. And now, she was turning her pain and anger toward the Uchiha, seeking revenge in a way Kakashi hadn't anticipated. "The Uzumaki?" Kakashi's voice trailed off as realization hit him. Yuki wasn't just any random geisha, she was an Uzumaki survivor, fueled by rage against the village that abandoned her people. "You people let my clan die, Kakashi," Yuki spat, her voice venomous. "You and your precious village did nothing while we were wiped out, and now I'll make sure you understand what that feels like." Kakashi clenched his fists, his Sharingan blazing with intensity as he prepared to strike. "I won't let you take Sasuke." His voice was firm, resolute. "I don't care about the Uchiha boy. Now be a good boy, Kakashi," Yuki continued, her voice dripping with venom. "And give me the young Uzumaki. I'll spare what's left of the Uchiha, or I'll finish what I started." Kakashi's Sharingan flared with rage. "You won't touch Naruto," he growled, stepping forward, his body tense and ready for battle. But Yuki's smile only widened. "Are you sure you can stop me?" she taunted, her fingers twitching as she prepared to defend herself. The air between them crackled with tension, the weight of their shared history adding fuel to the fire. Kakashi moved first, launching toward Yuki with a speed that would have overwhelmed most opponents. But Yuki was no ordinary opponent. She danced around his strikes with a fluid grace, her movements precise and calculated. Her eyes, now glowing with a dangerous light, followed his every move. "You're too slow," Yuki teased, dodging his kunai with ease. "You can't protect anyone, Kakashi. You never could." Kakashi gritted his teeth, his frustration growing as he tried to land a blow. Yuki's chakra flared, and she countered with a barrage of sharp, deadly strikes, her movements fueled by the anger she held toward the village. Meanwhile, Itachi struggled to free himself from the chains. The seal holding him in place was powerful, far beyond anything he had anticipated. His body ached, and the pain from his earlier treatment by Sakura left him vulnerable. But his thoughts remained on Sasuke, still unconscious in his arms. He had to get free. He had to protect him. Just as Kakashi thought he might gain the upper hand, Yuki's chakra surged again, and she unleashed a wave of energy that forced him back, giving her space to move. "You can't win, Kakashi," Yuki said, her voice cold and distant. "The Uchiha are already dead." As her words hung in the air, Kakashi's resolve hardened. "I'll protect them, unlike the village could have protected the Uzumaki." The battle was far from over, but the stakes had never been higher. Chapter 26, Confrontation in the Uchiha District. The tension in the air was palpable, crackling with chakra as Kakashi and Yuki faced off in the heart of the Uchiha District. The moon shone down on them, casting eerie shadows across the ground as if the village itself was watching the battle unfold. Yuki's blood-soaked kimono fluttered slightly in the breeze, her face calm, but her eyes glowed with intensity. Kakashi, his Sharingan fully activated, was ready for the next move, his mind racing as he calculated the best way to deal with her. Itachi remained bound by the red chains, his body weak from the strain, his thoughts on Sasuke, who was still unconscious in his arms. He could feel the pulse of the seals tightening around him, locking him in place, and despite his great power, the pain from the earlier treatment had left him vulnerable. He glanced toward Yuki, whose deadly grace made it clear she was no mere geisha. She had a deep connection to the Uzumaki, and that alone made her dangerous. "I won't let you take Naruto," Kakashi growled, his voice sharp as he prepared to strike again. The kunai in his hand gleamed under the moonlight, and his eyes never left Yuki's. Yuki smiled faintly, her expression unbothered by Kakashi's words. "You still think you can protect him, don't you? Just like you thought you could protect Rin." Her voice was soft but cutting, hitting a nerve Kakashi tried to bury deep within himself. The mention of Rin, the girl he couldn't save, sent a wave of emotion crashing over him. "Don't say her name." Kakashi's voice was low, dangerous, and filled with a cold fury. But Yuki wasn't finished. "The Uchiha are already dead, Kakashi. They've been dead the moment the village decided to let them fall. Just like my people, just like Rin." Kakashi felt his heart twist in his chest, but he didn't waver. He rushed forward, his movements swift as he aimed a strike at her, his Sharingan predicting her every move. But Yuki was ready. She dodged effortlessly, her own chakra flaring as she countered with a deadly barrage of strikes that forced Kakashi to step back. Kakashi quickly realized that Yuki wasn't just skilled, she was a master of chakra control and combat. Her strikes were precise and her movements were graceful, yet lethal. The power she hid beneath her calm exterior was immense, and Kakashi could feel the weight of her chakra pressing down on him with each passing moment. "You're strong, but not strong enough," Yuki taunted, her voice almost playful as she dodged another one of Kakashi's strikes. "You can't save them, Kakashi. The Uchiha are doomed." She moved with lightning speed, her chakra radiating in sharp bursts as she retaliated with a series of kunai aimed directly at Kakashi's vital points. Kakashi blocked the attack with a swift movement of his own, but Yuki's relentless assault didn't give him a moment to breathe. He knew he had to do something quickly to turn the tide of this battle before it was too late. Just as Yuki seemed ready to land a decisive blow, a new figure appeared out of the shadows, the masked Rin. The mysterious Anbu-like figure, who had been lurking at the edges of Kakashi's suspicions for some time, finally stepped into the fray. "That's enough," a voice said from behind the mask as the masked Rin leaped between Kakashi and Yuki, blocking the next strike with a swift flick of her wrist. Kakashi froze for a moment, his eyes narrowing as he took in the sight before him. He had suspected that this Rin was somehow connected to the events surrounding Itachi and the Uchiha clan, but her sudden intervention now raised even more questions. Could he trust her? "You shouldn't be here," Yuki hissed, her eyes flashing with annoyance as she faced the newcomer. "This isn't your fight." The masked Rin remained calm, her voice steady as she replied, "It's my fight if it involves Kakashi and the village." Yuki's eyes narrowed, clearly displeased by this turn of events. "You're only delaying the inevitable." She turned her attention back to Kakashi. "You still don't understand what's happening, do you? You think this is just about the Uchiha, but it's bigger than that." Her voice was cold, and there was a bitterness that ran deep. Kakashi's mind raced, trying to make sense of the situation. He didn't fully understand Yuki's motivations, but one thing was clear. Her hatred for the village ran deep, and she seemed determined to see the Uchiha fall as a part of her twisted revenge. And yet, there was something else, something darker at play that he couldn't quite put his finger on. Just as the tension reached its peak, a new presence filled the air, dark and oppressive. The very atmosphere seemed to shift, and both Kakashi and the masked Rin tensed, their senses alert. A swirling vortex of chakra appeared behind Yuki, and from it stepped a man wearing an orange mask with a single eye hole that revealed a glowing Sharingan. His presence was overwhelming, and it immediately shifted the balance of power in the district. Ooh! Kakashi's voice trailed off as he stared at the masked man, his heart pounding in his chest. He had never seen this man before, but the dark energy that radiated from him was unmistakable. The masked man chuckled softly, his voice low and chilling. You don't know who I am, but that doesn't matter. What matters is that your fight here is meaningless. The Uchiha are already finished. He stepped forward, his gaze shifting between Kakashi, Yuki, and the masked Rin. You're going to let them destroy themselves, just like Konoha let the Uzumaki fall, the man continued, his tone mocking. You couldn't stop it then, and you won't stop it now. Kakashi clenched his fists, the weight of the masked man's words hitting him hard. He had heard of the destruction of the Uzumaki clan, of the village's failure to protect them. But this man, he spoke as if he had been there, as if he had witnessed it all. The masked man raised his hand, and in an instant, the masked Rin was caught in a powerful genjutsu. She froze in place, her body stiffening as the illusion took hold, rendering her helpless. Kakashi's eyes widened in shock as he watched, realizing how easily the masked man had trapped her. Rin, you see, Kakashi, there's nothing you can do, the masked man said, his voice dripping with confidence. Your fourth Hokage couldn't defeat me, and neither can you. Kakashi's heart raced as he processed the masked man's words. The fourth Hokage? What was this man talking about? The fourth had been one of the greatest shinobi to ever live, and yet this man claimed to have bested him? The masked man's gaze shifted to Yuki, who stood silently at his side. We'll be back, he said, his tone calm but filled with dark promise. In 7 years, I'll return for the Nine Tails. And when I do, there won't be anyone left to stop me. Yuki met the masked man's gaze and nodded, her face expressionless. She turned to Kakashi one last time, her eyes cold as ice. Remember this moment, Kakashi. The Uchiha, the Uzumaki, it's all connected. You'll see. With that, the masked man raised his hand once more, and he and both Rin and Yuki vanished into a swirling vortex of chakra, leaving behind only the faint echo of their presence. The air in the Uchiha district grew still once more, but the weight of the battle lingered. Kakashi stood frozen for a moment, his mind racing with questions and uncertainty. He glanced toward Itachi, still bound by the chains, and saw the anguish in his eyes. Itachi had seen everything. His thoughts raced, consumed by the revelation of the masked man and Yuki's involvement. He knew now that the Uchiha clan was doomed, but he also realized that the village's secrets ran deeper than he had ever imagined. As the chains around Itachi finally began to loosen, freeing him from their hold, Kakashi approached. There were no words exchanged between them, only the shared understanding that the events of this night had set something much larger into motion. The Uchiha were on the brink of destruction, and the village would never be the same again. Chapter 27, The Weight of Sacrifice. The streets of the Uchiha district were quiet, but not still. Hidden beneath the calm was a tension like a pulled wire, ready to snap. Itachi stood beneath the awning of his home, the scent of rain lingering in the air. Last night, everything had changed. The previous night played out in his mind, haunting him. The mysterious woman in the mask, the one who had suddenly intervened and healed him of his sickness. And Yuki, the geisha drenched in blood. Everything had changed. He had been prepared to carry the burden of slaughtering his clan for the village, to sacrifice his soul for the sake of peace. But now, nothing was as it seemed. Yuki had struck first, wiping out many of the Uchiha leaders who had been pushing for rebellion. Itachi's heart was heavy with the knowledge that while he had hesitated, she had taken matters into her own hands. The realization filled him with conflicting emotions, relief, guilt, and anger all swirling within him. He had thought the fate of the Uchiha was his responsibility alone, but now Yuki, the masked woman, and even the man with the orange mask had intertwined themselves in his mission. Itachi's thoughts drifted to the masked woman who had appeared in the midst of the chaos. She had emerged from the darkness when Itachi had been at his weakest. He remembered the searing pain as she healed him, pulling the sickness from his body with a complex seal. Her healing had been different from anything he had ever experienced. Forceful, painful, but effective. Her motives, however, remained a mystery. She had said nothing of her intentions, only that it was not yet his time to fall. Her words echoed in his mind. "You have another path to follow, Itachi. This is not your end." Itachi clenched his fists. The masked woman had altered everything. His plan to sacrifice himself and his clan for the greater good of the village had been disrupted. He no longer had the option of hiding behind his illness or using it as an excuse to escape the torment of what he had to do. He was healed now, forced to face his mission with clear eyes. But what had been her purpose in saving him? And what was Yuki's true goal? Itachi moved through the Uchiha district, the moonlight casting long shadows over the homes of his family and neighbors. In every window, he saw faces he had known his entire life, people who trusted him, loved him. He had accepted that he would be the one to end their lives. But now, with Yuki's intervention, the path forward was blurred. Many of the clan's most vocal leaders were already dead. Their bodies had been found that morning, and the Uchiha were in disarray. The rebellion had been crushed before it could even begin. Some in the village believed that the masked man from last night, the one responsible for the fourth Hokage's death, had struck the Uchiha first. The tension had eased, the eyes of the village turning away from the Uchiha, believing the real threat had been exposed. But Itachi knew better. This was not over. He paused before his home, his hand hovering over the door. Inside, his younger brother Sasuke was sleeping peacefully, unaware of the fate that had almost befallen their clan. Itachi's heart ached at the thought of Sasuke, innocent and full of potential, caught in the web of politics and manipulation that had been woven around them. "I won't let this happen," Itachi whispered to himself. The Uchiha clan did not have to be destroyed. Not like this. Yuki's actions had given him a small window of time, and the masked woman's cryptic words haunted him. There had to be another way, a path where Sasuke could live, where the clan didn't have to be sacrificed for peace. Itachi entered his home, his father sitting quietly in the common room. Fugaku looked up, his face stern but tired. The events of the past day had taken their toll on him, the loss of many key members of the clan weighing heavily on his mind. "Itachi?" Fugaku greeted him, his voice steady but lacking its usual authority. "Father?" Itachi replied, sitting down across from him. For a long moment, neither spoke. The silence between them was thick with unspoken words. Finally, Fugaku broke it. "The rebellion is over, isn't it?" he said quietly, his gaze fixed on the table between them. "With those men dead, there's no one left to push for war. But this was not the outcome we sought." Itachi nodded. "No, this wasn't what I had envisioned either." Fugaku looked at his son, suspicion flickering in his eyes. "What do you plan to do now, Itachi? The village still sees us as a threat. Do you truly believe they will leave us in peace now?" Itachi met his father's gaze, the weight of his decision pressing down on him. He had come here to tell Fugaku the truth, to tell him of his original mission. But something stopped him. Yuki's intervention, the masked woman's cryptic warnings, and the appearance of the man in the orange mask, none of it made sense anymore. The clear path Itachi had once followed was now twisted and obscured. "There may be another way," Itachi said slowly, "but I need time." Fugaku frowned, his expression hardening. "Time is a luxury we do not have, Itachi. If we wait, we give the village more reason to act against us." Itachi nodded. "I understand, but trust me, father, for just a little longer." Later that night, Itachi stood on the rooftop of his home, looking out over the Uchiha district. The village was still, the air thick with tension, but the immediate threat of rebellion had passed. For now, the Uchiha were safe. But Itachi knew the village's leaders. He knew that Danzo, the third Hokage, and the council wouldn't let the Uchiha off so easily. They would always be seen as a potential threat, and if he didn't find a way to change that perception, the clan would eventually face annihilation, whether by his hand or the village's. Yuki's intervention had been brutal but effective. Her massacre of the key Uchiha leaders had been swift and left a mark on the clan's future. Yet, her motives remained unclear. She had spoken of vengeance for the Uzumaki clan, of how the village had abandoned them. Her bitterness ran deep, and Itachi could see that she harbored a grudge that went far beyond the Uchiha. But why had she chosen to strike now? And what was her connection to the masked man? As the wind whipped through the trees, Itachi felt the weight of his decisions pressing down on him. He had sworn to protect the village, but he couldn't bring himself to destroy his family, not when there was still a chance to save them. "I will find a way," he whispered to the night, his resolve hardening. "I will protect them all." The next morning, Itachi made his way to the training grounds, where Sasuke was already practicing his ninjutsu. His younger brother looked up, his face lighting up at the sight of him. "Itachi, look what I've been working on!" Sasuke exclaimed, his excitement palpable. Itachi smiled softly, watching his brother with a mix of pride and sorrow. He couldn't let the village's plan unfold. He couldn't let Sasuke's future be drenched in the blood of their family. "You're doing well, Sasuke," Itachi said, his voice calm and steady. "Keep training. You're going to be strong, stronger than anyone else in the village." Sasuke grinned, eager to impress his older brother. As Itachi watched Sasuke, his mind raced with possibilities. He knew that time was running out. The village still had plans for the Uchiha, but with Yuki's actions, the rebellion had been dismantled. Perhaps there was a way to negotiate, to find peace without violence. And if there wasn't, he would need to make sure Sasuke was ready for whatever came next. "I will protect you," Itachi thought, his resolve as strong as ever, no matter what it takes. Chapter 28, Behind the Illusions, Sakura's Diary. Day 2021, Year 7. The night didn't unfold so much as it unraveled. Layer by layer, illusion by illusion, I showed them only what I wanted them to see. Kakashi, Itachi, even that orange masked ghost. I couldn't stop the massacre outright, not yet. But I could twist the perception of it, slow its momentum, change its meaning. So I wrapped them all in lies disguised as truth. It hurt. It always does. But the closer I get to protecting them, the more I'm willing to become something unrecognizable to do it. The Uchiha district had returned to a fragile stillness. Broken roof tiles glittered beneath the moonlight, bloodless and pristine, because there had been no true battle, only illusions left behind. Sakura stood in a small candlelit room within the oldest Senju compound ruin, her mask laid carefully on the table beside her. Her breath was slow, controlled, but her hands trembled faintly, stained with the aftershocks of the night's layered genjutsu. This had been the most dangerous play yet. Not just one illusion, but 5. Genjutsu nested within genjutsu, stitched into the minds of 2 of the most dangerous shinobi in the village, Kakashi Hatake and Itachi Uchiha. The threads of deception were delicate. One misstep, and the whole weave would collapse. But she had done it. The rooftop clash that Kakashi believed he had witnessed, the fight between Yuki and Itachi, his own confrontation with the grieving, vengeful Uzumaki geisha, none of it had been real. Not fully. From the moment Kakashi had arrived, Sakura had placed the first layer of her trap, a brief touch to his wrist disguised as stabilizing him, masking the genjutsu seal that threaded quietly into his chakra network. From there, his mind became her stage. Kakashi saw a brutal duel. He heard Yuki scream about the death of her clan, saw her bloodied kimono, felt the danger ripple in the air. He saw Itachi fall to chains, heard Sasuke stir faintly in his brother's arms. All of it carefully orchestrated, like scenes from a play only she knew the script to. And through it all, she never once touched her true power. Not a single real blow had landed. But the pain Kakashi felt, the weight of guilt she pressed into his chest, would linger long after the illusions faded. Itachi's seal had been planted earlier, when Sakura had healed him. He had believed the agony he endured came from purging the sickness from his body. But the truth was colder. The pain had been a smokescreen for embedding a layered genjutsu into his nervous system, so seamless that even his Sharingan hadn't caught the shift. It wasn't designed to control him. It was designed to sway his judgment subtly, to slow his decision-making, to insert hesitation where there would have been resolve. If she could not stop the massacre outright, then perhaps she could manipulate the weight of his choices long enough to change their outcome. Both men now carried pieces of her influence, buried deep beneath their perceptions of reality. Neither would see the same truth again. The masked Rin, another illusion. A projection carefully woven from Kakashi's memories, placed just within the periphery of his attention. She had stepped into the fray when the moment called for despair, when Yuki appeared most consumed by rage. She acted with grace, even interference, before being captured by yet another phantom, the masked man with the orange swirl. He had never been there. Sakura had drawn him from the deepest well of their collective fears, the man who destroyed Konoha, the specter behind the Nine Tails. His appearance had been Sakura's final trick, the ultimate threat, one too massive to question. As the masked man disappeared into the vortex with Rin in tow, the illusion ended, leaving only confusion and the faint echo of defeat in its wake. Back in the village, Kakashi awoke the next morning with fogged memories. He remembered pain, chains, blood, but the details refused to settle. He tried to recall the pattern of the masked woman's strikes, but it blurred. He tried to recount Itachi's injuries, but they didn't match what he had seen before. Even the presence of the masked man felt off, and every time he tried to think deeper, a faint headache pulled him back. The genjutsu seal Sakura had placed was not designed to enslave his will. It was crafted to seed doubt. He would question his instincts, second-guess his suspicions, hesitate to pursue her. 1,000 little fractures in his confidence, growing each day. Sakura exhaled deeply and placed the final sealing scroll into its wooden case. The mirror reflected a different girl now. Not the eager student, not the cheerful companion of Naruto and Hinata, but a strategist, a ghost in the seams of Konoha's power. It wasn't over. Itachi still bore the guilt of a massacre not yet committed. Kakashi carried questions with no answers, and the masked man, a fiction she had cast into reality. But soon the real shadows would respond to the echoes she had unleashed. She picked up her mask. "Let them chase ghosts," she whispered, "while I rewrite the story." And into the night she vanished. Chapter 28, Behind the Illusions, confirmed. Chapter 29, Reporting to the Third Hokage, Sakura's Diary, Day 2122, Year 7. I've never been so exhausted, not from battle, but from the weight of watching them, Kakashi, Itachi, the Hokage, react to a truth I created. Every word they speak now, every decision they make is laced with my lies. I should feel guilty. Maybe I do. But mostly I feel fear. Because the longer I wear these masks, the harder it becomes to remember who I am beneath them. The sun rose slowly over Konoha, casting a faint glow over a village that was reeling from the events of the previous night. The tension that had loomed over the Uchiha compound was palpable, but now it had shifted into something else. An unspoken uncertainty about the masked man and his dark promises. As the village began to stir, 2 shinobi made their way to the Hokage's office, burdened by the weight of what had transpired. Kakashi stood in front of the third Hokage, his face a mask of calm, though beneath that calm, his mind was racing. He replayed the night's events over and over in his head, trying to make sense of the battle, the genjutsu, and Yuki's words. He wasn't sure what had been real and what had been an illusion, but one thing was clear. The village was facing a new and terrifying threat. Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage, leaned forward, his hands folded under his chin. His sharp eyes observed Kakashi as the Jonin recounted every detail. Kakashi described Yuki, though he didn't know it, standing amidst the blood-soaked streets of the Uchiha district, her pink kimono drenched in the aftermath of her attack. She accused the village of abandoning her people, Kakashi said, his voice steady despite the growing unease in the room. The Uzumaki were destroyed because we did nothing. She blames us, blames you, Lord Hokage. The third Hokage's expression darkened. The weight of the Uzumaki clan's destruction was a painful memory for Hiruzen, but hearing that it still echoed in the form of Yuki's vengeance brought a new layer of complexity to the situation. It wasn't just Yuki Uzumaki, Kakashi continued. The masked woman, Rin, was there too, but she helped me, not Yuki. Together, we tried to intervene. Hiruzen's sharp gaze fixed on him. The mention of Rin, the mysterious masked figure who had been shadowing Kakashi for weeks, was unexpected. It had been unclear where her loyalties lay, but now Kakashi was clarifying that she had sided with him in the battle. And the masked Rin? Hiruzen asked. Kakashi's eyes softened slightly, She fought on my side, using powerful sealing jutsu to try and stop Yuki's rampage. She also mentioned that her purpose was to protect me and keep me safe. She seemed to know exactly what Yuki was planning, but I still don't fully understand her motives. Kakashi paused, then added, "The most troubling part is the masked man. He didn't appear during this fight, but the echoes of his presence were clear. Yuki is connected to him in some way." Hiruzen leaned back, his face thoughtful. "The masked man is a danger we cannot ignore. If Yuki is in league with him, we need to uncover the depth of that alliance." "He boasted that he would return in 7 years to claim the 9 tails," Kakashi said, "and that the 4th Hokage couldn't defeat him. He said no one could." The 3rd Hokage's eyes grew heavier as the weight of these revelations settled. "You believe she was manipulated?" Kakashi hesitated. "It's hard to say. Yuki's power is immense, but her anger, her hatred, it felt personal. It may be that she's a pawn, but I can't rule out that she's acting on her own." The room fell into silence as the Hokage digested this new information. "And Lord Hokage," Kakashi said quietly, "I can't shake the feeling that Yuki, she's connected to the Uchiha somehow. Her presence aligns too closely with their unrest, with Itachi." Itachi entered the Hokage's office, his steps measured, his expression unreadable. Last night's events had left him reeling in ways few could understand, but his loyalty to the village and his duty drove him forward. "The masked woman who healed me," Itachi began, his voice controlled but somber, "was not Yuki. She wore a different mask, one Kakashi referred to as Rin during the fight." Hiruzen raised an eyebrow, surprised. "Rin?" He said her name aloud? Itachi nodded. "Yes, during the battle, I heard Kakashi shout it when she was taken by the masked man. It's the only name I have. She appeared a few hours before the confrontation, using advanced sealing jutsu to remove my illness. She saved me," he continued, "but the process was painful. It incapacitated me for much of the battle. She didn't seem to be acting on behalf of the village, but she wasn't my enemy either. It felt like she had her own agenda." "And Yuki?" Hiruzen pressed. "Yuki's interference was brutal," Itachi said. "She eliminated many of the Uchiha who were leading the rebellion. Her actions were calculated to cripple the uprising, but she made it clear she wasn't doing it for the village's sake. She acted for her own reasons, reasons tied to the fall of the Uzumaki clan. Even though I was healed," he added, "I couldn't stop her in time. Her attacks were precise, but there was no malice directed at me. She left me incapacitated but alive. She made it clear she had no intention of killing me or Sasuke." The 3rd Hokage listened closely, absorbing Itachi's report with quiet intensity. "Yuki has become a far more dangerous element than we anticipated," he finally said. "Her power, combined with the masked man's influence, poses a threat to the village on a scale we've never seen." Itachi nodded. "Rin's involvement complicates things. She helped Kakashi and me, but her motives remain unclear. She didn't act like a rogue shinobi, but I can't tell if she's an ally or if she's working toward a different goal." As the 3rd Hokage sat back in his chair, both Kakashi and Itachi's reports echoed in his mind. The previous focus on the Uchiha rebellion had shifted, and now the threat of Yuki Uzumaki and the masked man loomed over the village. Danzo entered the office, his presence as cold and calculating as ever. He had been briefed on the events of the night, and it was clear that he had his own interpretation of the situation. "Yuki Uzumaki must be dealt with immediately," Danzo said. "Her power, combined with the masked man's influence, poses too great a risk to be left unchecked. She has already taken lives. Uchiha or not, she's a rogue element." Hiruzen shook his head. "Yuki's actions are indeed dangerous, but we must tread carefully. The Uzumaki were once our allies. Her hatred stems from our failure to protect them. We cannot escalate this situation without understanding what we're facing." "And Rin?" Danzo asked pointedly. "We don't yet know where her loyalties lie," Hiruzen admitted, "but she protected Kakashi and aided Itachi. Until we know more, we will not act against her." Kakashi stepped forward. "Rin may be an unknown, but I believe she is not an enemy. Her actions last night were in defense of the village." Danzo said nothing more, but the tension in the room grew thick. "For now," Hiruzen concluded, "we will investigate Yuki and Rin further. But our greatest concern is still the masked man. He is the thread that ties all of this together. If we don't understand his motives, we are blind to the greater danger." Sakura's Diary, Day 2022, Year 7. The mask is off. For now. No more geisha, no more blood-soaked silk. Yuki has served her purpose. The Uchiha live. The village is looking the wrong way, and I can finally breathe without choking on my lies. But the cost is growing. Rin's face is becoming harder to wear. Kakashi believed her, but for how long? I need to know more. I need to be her. What she knew, what she feared, what she hid. I think I know where to start. Gods, if this works. Sakura stood atop a quiet rooftop, the mask of the geisha resting beside her. For the first time, she didn't feel the need to pick it up again. Not tonight. Perhaps not ever. The strain of playing both Yuki and Rin had begun to chip away at her. But Yuki's role was finished. For now, the village would chase shadows and ghosts. The threat had shifted, the narrative rewritten. And for the first time in days, Sakura felt a hollow kind of relief. She cast her gaze toward the distant Hokage Tower. Kakashi had believed the lie. He had seen Rin, called her name. That was a start. But if she wanted Rin to live beyond a mask, she had to go deeper. She had to know the real Rin, what Rin had known. A plan began to take shape. She knelt beside a scroll, its edges marked with chakra-sensitive ink. Her fingers brushed over it as a thought clicked into place. "Oh," she whispered, her eyes narrowing. "That might work." And with that, she vanished into the dark.